Everybody having a good time? Good time?
Imagine this. The US just banned Nvidia from selling its chips to China again. Overnight, the company lost $5.5 billion, and its CEO hopped on a plane to Beijing, trying to figure out what's next. But here's the question. Is this ban actually helping the US? Or is it just turbocharging China's race to dominate the semiconductor industry? What if I told you that instead of slowing China down, these sanctions are pushing them closer to becoming the first country in the world capable of making advanced chips entirely on their own? In this video, we'll break down why this move by the US is incredibly short-sighted and how it could backfire in ways no one saw coming.
Nvidia stocks sinking again today. This is coming after a report from Reuters saying China's Huawei is boosting AI chip production. For more now, we're going to bring in Stacy Razgon, Managing Director and Senior Analyst at Bernstein. Stacy, always great to have you on the program. So we have these reports. China's Huawei planning a new AI chip, they say, for mass shipment. It's from Reuters. I'm looking at Nvidia. We're down about 6% in today's trade. Stacy, you cover the name. What'd you make of that headline?
To be honest, this is my issue with the ban that we got last week on Nvidia's China offerings. They've already been heavily constrained by export controls. The part that they were allowed to sell in China, it was called H20. The performance was already very limited, and the parts that Huawei had available actually they have better performance. After last week, then the government is now requiring licenses for Nvidia even to ship that low-end part. So effectively, they can't ship any AI parts into China anymore. So, I mean, to be honest, we've basically just handed the China AI market to Huawei.
When the US government added Huawei to the entity list in 2019, the move was seen as a death sentence for the company. Analysts and media outlets predicted that Huawei would collapse without access to critical technologies, like TSMC's advanced manufacturing nodes. Without TMC, Huawei couldn't produce its flagship Kirin chips. Losing access to Google services meant Huawei phones were essentially crippled outside China, and companies like Applied Materials and ASML stopped supplying Huawei with equipment needed for chip design and fabrication. At the time, you could read headlines that were filled with doom and gloom, but instead of crumbling, Huawei did something remarkable. It doubled down on self-reliance.
Nvidia under pressure as Chinese tech company Huawei. They are reportedly announcing some plans to begin mass shipments of its advanced AI chip to Chinese customers as early as next month. According to the report from Reuters, some shipments have already been made as Chinese AI companies look for domestic alternatives to Nvidia chips that now require an export license.
China is investing billions of dollars into its domestic semiconductor industry. Companies like Huawei, SMIC, and Cambricon are racing to develop homegrown alternatives to Western technology. China also already has the raw materials and knows how to design chips. The choke point right now is the lack of advanced manufacturing equipment like the machines from ASML. But guess what? China is working on its own machines. There's a potential first. No country in the world currently has the ability to completely manufacture chips within its own borders, from raw materials to design to production. But China might be the first. As one might put it, America might be creating a monster, or waking up a dragon. By denying China access to even lower tier technologies, the US is forcing them to innovate independently. In the short term, this might seem like a win, but in the long term, it could backfire spectacularly. Instead of relying on US chips, China will focus on becoming technologically self-reliant. And once they achieve that, they won't just dominate their domestic market, they'll probably dominate globally.
Forget about tariff. This is a turn of event to show how stupid, I don't have another word for it, some of the policy can be, okay? So, of course, China's ability to produce AI chip, Huawei's ability to produce AI chips is lower, is behind Nvidia. However, United States decide to sanction China the ability to get Nvidia chip, the high-end chip. So a lot of Chinese company has to buy from Huawei, and of course, Huawei's developing become accelerated. The money that should be made by the American now is made by China, and in the future, more and more. Anyway, but some people might say, should U.S. just look at China? Shouldn't U.S. do something to contain China, like prevent China to get the high-end chip? Isn't that a good way to contain China? No. And shouldn't U.S. try to do that? No. Think about it. When U.S. become the #1 country in the world, did anybody try to stop you? Or if somebody tried to stop you, will it work? I don't know what to say.
Amid Nvidia's struggles, Huawei is stepping up its new AI chip, the Ascend 910C, set to begin mass production as early as next month. This development comes at a critical moment as Chinese companies scramble for domestic alternatives to Nvidia's H20. Now, according to sources familiar with its design, the 910C combines two 910B processors into a single package, doubling its computing power and memory capacity. While it's not a revolutionary leap, it achieves performance comparable to Nvidia's H100 through advanced integration techniques. With Nvidia's H20 now restricted, Huawei's 910C is poised to meet the growing demand for high-performance AI chips in China. Some shipments have already been completed, signaling that Huawei is ready to scale up production quickly. Just 5 years after being blacklisted, Huawei is now producing chips that rival the best in the world, all without relying on TSMC or Western tools. This isn't just innovation, it's defiance in the face of sanctions.
Nvidia has been in China for 30 years. The China market is very important to us. It's important to our growth. We have many employees here. The technical excellence of the Chinese industry is quite impressive, and we benefited from that for the last 30 years. And so we spoke about the last 30 years, and we spoke about the next 30 years.
The U.S. export controls highlight a fundamental miscalculation, in my opinion. You can't sanction your way to victory in a global tech race. Instead of crippling China's AI ambitions, these measures are accelerating its push for technological independence. Nvidia's loss is China's gain. Every dollar Nvidia loses in revenue is potentially a dollar gained by Chinese competitors. Companies like Huawei and Cambricon are positioning themselves not just as domestic alternatives, but as global players. If China succeeds in building superior chips, countries that currently rely on US tech might turn to Chinese suppliers instead. This could reshape the global semiconductor landscape entirely. As Paul Triolo of DGA Group points out, US controls on GPUs and semiconductor manufacturing equipment have primarily damaged US companies, including Nvidia, while having marginal impact on China's ability to develop frontier AI models.
Why is the Trump administration clamping down on Nvidia's ability to sell chips to China? American chipmaker Nvidia says that new US restrictions on sales to China could hit its earnings by $5.5 billion. The particular chip that's come under the spotlight made by Nvidia is the H20. It's tailored to already comply with restrictions that were brought in by Trump's predecessor, Joe Biden, but now will need a special license to be able to be sold to Chinese customers. Now, many see this as a move by Washington as ramping up of the trade war with Beijing. However, another reason for this tactic is the race for AI dominance. At the moment, the US leads in terms of investment and AI models, but China is closing the gap.
So here we are. The US tried to slow China down by cutting off Nvidia chips, but instead of crippling their tech industry, it seems like they've lit a fire under it. Huawei's Ascend 910C, China's push for self-reliance, and the billions being poured into R&D all point to one thing. China isn't just playing catch-up anymore. They're positioning themselves to lead. The big question now is, will these sanctions end up being the biggest strategic blunder in modern tech history? Could China really become the first country to make advanced chips entirely within its own borders? And if they do, what does that mean for Nvidia, the US, and the global balance of power? One thing's for sure, the race is far from over and the stakes have never been higher. What do you think? Is China on track to surpass the US in chip making, or will Nvidia find a way to stay ahead? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
What surprise? You visit your biggest customer. That's not a surprise. China is gonna buy more Nvidia chips than anybody else, with the sanction or not. Also, I think what's in his mind probably is visiting competitors. Because of the sanction, the chips company in China is catching up with a speed that he's worrying all day. Because the next company that replace Nvidia is going to be from China. He knows that. And also, he might go visit his parents' hometown in Zhejiang province and see where his family come from. And you will understand what his loyalty lays at. It lays at the prosperity of all people.